Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. Phyrexia All Will Be One is the new magic set dropping, and we are super excited for it. So all of us together decided to brew some new decks to show off the new cards. First up is Cameron on Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. This mono-white deck is hoping to take advantage of Enter the Battlefield triggers, and then double them with Elesh Norn, while also stifling your opponent's triggers. He keeps an Ancient Den, Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, Strip Mine, Soul Ring, Winds of Abandon, Solemn Simulacrum, and Palace Jailer. Next up is Ethan on Atraxa, Grand Unifier. This is a 4-color landfall into the battlefield flicker deck, so trying to do everything at once, and then use Atraxa as a top-end finisher, as well as card advantage. He keeps a hand with Flooded Strand, Urtet Catacombs, Green Sun Zenith, Nissa Vital Force, Haywire Might, Farhaven Elf, and Agent of Treachery. Our third player today is Matt on Urtet, Remnant of Minarch. This is a 5-color Mirror Matters deck, hoping to cast mirror creature spells and then pump them up with Urtet and overrun opponents. He keeps a hand with Wood of Foothills, Volcanic Island, Scrubland, Timeless Lotus, Hovermere, Mondrak, Glory Dominus, and Joyra with a light captain. Our final player today is Shelby on Kethek, Crucible Goliath. This Rakdos deck is hoping to cheat creatures into play with 2 methods, either using Kethek's ability to find them from the library or to reanimate them from the graveyard. He keeps a hand with 2 swamps, Cabal Coffers, Soul Ring, Rakdos Signet, Belden of the Third Path, and Dargo the Shipwrecker. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. We post new gameplay videos every week, so you don't want to miss any of it. Big shout out to our patrons. We really appreciate all the support. Link to our Patreon is in the description, as well as links to the deck lists, our social media, our podcast channel, and our public Discord server. Our channel is also partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or match-related products, check out our affiliate link in the description. We're also partnered with Inked Gaming. There's also an affiliate link for that as well. Now, on to the gameplay.
Looks like Cameron wins the die roll, and he starts off with Ancient Den into Soul Ring, and then he'll pass to Ethan, who plays and fetches with Verdant Catacombs, shocking in a Breeding Pool, and then he'll tap for 1 to cast Green Sun Zenith, X is equal to 0, and he finds a Dryad Arbor to the battlefield, and then passes to Matt, who says Wooded Foothills go. Shelby will play a Swamp, into a Soul Ring, into a Rakdos Signet, and then pass the turn back to Cameron, who will play a Plains, and then he'll tap for 4 to cast a Sad Sam. He'll find a Snow Plains to the battlefield tapped, and pass to Ethan while he's searching. Ethan starts off by casting Lotus Cobra, and then he'll play Flooded Strand, floating a green when it enters, and then he'll immediately crack it to find a Godless Shrine untapped to the battlefield. He'll use Lotus Cobra to float another green, and then he'll cast Farhaven Elf. With it, he'll find an island to the battlefield, to which he'll make another green with Lotus Cobra, which he'll use to cast Haywire Might. The turn is then passed to Matt, who will play a Volcanic Island, and pass to Shelby, who plays another Swamp, and then will tap for 4 to cast Solemn Simulacrum. And when it enters the battlefield, he'll find another Swamp to the battlefield tapped. And then he passes the turn to Cameron, who will play Nykthos, and then immediately cast his commander, Elesh Norn. He'll then pass the turn to Ethan, who is an all-ETB deck, so Ethan just casts Staff of Completion, then will sacrifice his Haywire Mine to blow up Cameron's Soul Ring and gain 2 life, and then he activates Staff of Completion, paying 4 life to draw a card. And then he'll pass the turn to Matt, who plays a Windswept Heath, and then will crack both of his fetches for a Tundra and a Tropical Island, and then he'll cast his commander, Urtet, Remnant of Minarch. The turn is then passed to Shelby, who plays Cabal Coffers, and then he'll tap for 4 to cast his commander, Kethek. After this, he'll cast and equip Skull Clamp to his Solemn Simulacrum, and then he'll move to his end step and sacrifice it with his commander. With the ability, he flips into an Impulsive Pilferer, and then he'll draw 3 cards from his Solemn Simulacrum dying. The turn is then passed to Cameron, who will start off with an Aganjo Castle, and then he'll tap for 4 and will cast Palace Jailer, making him the Monarch, and then he also exiles Shelby and Matt's commanders, which they'll both put to the command zone. After this, Cameron will move to combat and swing his commander at Shelby, who will just take it. Cameron will then move to end step, draw off the Monarchy, and then the turn is passed to Ethan, who will tap for 5, taking 2 to his staff, and then he'll cast Nissa Vital Force. He'll down-tick her to return Verdant Catacombs to his hand, and then he'll play a tapped Agadim the Undercrypt as land for turn. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who plays a Scrubland as land for turn, and then he'll cast Joyra, and then pass the turn to Shelby, who will play a Phyrexian Tower, and then he'll equip his Skull Clamp to his Pilferer. It'll die, and he'll draw 2 cards and make a treasure token. After this, he'll tap for 5 and cast Junji, the Midnight Sky. Junji is promptly equipped with the Skull Clamp, and then sacrificed to Phyrexian Tower for 2 black mana. And when Junji dies, Shelby will cause everybody to discard 2 cards and lose 2 life, except everybody forgets to lose the 2 life, and then he'll draw 2 cards. The only card that's notable that is discarded is a Fiend Hunter from Cameron. Shelby will then cast a Zulaport Cutthroat, discard a Squee the Immortal on his cleanup, and then he'll pass the turn to Cameron, who starts off with the Plains. He'll then tap for 6 and drop Sun Titan. With its double ETB trigger, he'll return Soul Ring and Fiend Hunter to the battlefield, and Fiend Hunter will get a double trigger, which will exile Zulaport Cutthroat and Ethan's Dryad Arbor. Cameron will then move to combat and swing Elesh Norn at Nissa, and Ethan will chump with his elf. Cameron will then move to end step and draw a card off the Monarchy, and then pass the turn to Ethan, who starts by drawing a card with a staff by paying 4 life. He'll then float a blue with his island, and then uptick Nissa, untapping it, and then he'll pay 5 to his staff to untap it, and then pay another 4 life to draw another card. He'll then play his Verdant Catacombs, and then pass the turn to Matt, who plays Badlands as land for turn, and then he'll recast his commander, triggering Joyra. The turn is then passed to Shelby, who will play an Urborg. And of course, he activates Cabal Coffers to float 6 black mana. Then with the help of Rakdos Signet, he'll recast his commander, leaving him with 1 black floating. After this, he'll tap for an additional 3 and encore his Impulsive Pilferer. He'll then sacrifice 1 to Phyrexian Tower, making him a treasure and 2 more black mana, and then he'll cast Pawn of Ulamog. Continuing on, he'll Skull Clamp 1 of his Pilferers, making a treasure and drawing 2. And then he'll do it again. After this, he'll use both of his remaining treasures to cast a Keen Duelist, and then he'll move to his end step and immediately sacrifice it to his commander. This will get him a Viserys Seer to the battlefield, and then a Pawn of Ulamog trigger. The turn is then passed to Cameron, who will play a Strip Mine as land for turn, and then he'll cast an Esper Sentinel. He'll then Strip Mine Shelby's Cabal Coffers, and move to combat. He'll swing Sun Titan at Matt, and Elesh Norn at Ethan's Nissa. Attack trigger, and he returns Strip Mine to the battlefield. Both Ethan and Matt do not block, so Nissa is dead, and Matt takes 6. Cameron will then move to his end step, and draw a card off the Monarchy. The turn is now Ethan's, and he'll immediately try to Anguished Unmaking Cameron's commander. He does pay the 1, and Cameron responds with a Cloud Shift, blinking Elesh Norn, and making the Anguished Unmaking fizzle since it lost its target. Ethan, feeling a little defeated, will play a Forest, and then pass the turn to Matt, who will play Bayou as land for turn, and then he'll tap for 4 and cast Mondrak, which triggers Joyra. He'll then cast a Lead Mirror, which triggers Joyra and Urtet, and he'll actually get 2 mirrors from this. The turn will then be passed to Shelby, who will start off by playing his first mountain of the game. He'll then tap for 4 and cast Pitiless Plunderer. His Eldrazi Spawn is then sacrificed to Phyrexian Tower, getting him 2 black and a treasure. He'll then float 2 more and cast the Golden Throne, paying an extra 1 for Esper Sentinel. He'll tap the Golden Throne to sacrifice Viserys Seer, floating 2 black and a red. He'll also get a treasure and another spawn. He'll then use that mana to cast Legomos. He'll then move to combat, make his 2/1 skeleton, and swing it at Ethan, who just takes the damage. Post-combat, he'll start off by Skull Clamping his pawn to draw 2 cards and make a treasure. He'll then sacrifice a treasure to do the same thing to his 2/1 skeleton. And after that, he'll cast Feldon of the Third Path, then move to his end step and sacrifice Feldon to his commander. He'll flip into a Carrion Feeder, which will go to the battlefield, and then he'll make another spawn and a treasure token. The turn is now passed to Cameron, who will play another Plains' land for turn. He'll then activate Nykthos' ability to float 8 white mana, and using 6 of it, he'll overload a Winds of Abandon. Shelby is the only one with any responses, and he'll start by sacrificing his commander and his Lagomos to Carrion Feeder, which will make him 2 spawns and 2 treasures. He'll then sacrifice his Pitiless Plunderer and then Carrion Feeder to itself to get another 2 spawns. The winds will then resolve, and everybody searches for basics. Ethan gets 1, Matt gets 6, but he's only got 4 in his deck, and then Shelby gets 6 as well. After this, Cameron will Strip Mine Phyrexian Tower, and then he'll move to combat. He'll swing Elesh Norn, Sun Titan, and Fiend Hunter at Shelby for a total of 11 damage. And with no creatures left, Shelby just has to take it. The Sun Titan attack trigger will return Strip Mine to the battlefield, and then Cameron will move to end step, draw off the Monarchy, and the turn is passed to Ethan, who will stay on end step for a second to fetch with his Verdant Catacombs for Spara's headquarters. Then, still on end step, he activates his staff to pay 4 life and draw another card. Then, at the start of his turn, he'll do it again, and then he'll cast an Amanatu, upticking her to draw a card and put one from his hand on the top of his library. And then the turn is passed to Matt, who will start off by shocking in a Watery Grave. He'll then recast his commander and then pass the turn to Shelby, who starts off with a Haunted Ridge, and then he'll cast Captivating Crew. Cameron knows that his board is the only one that's going to be targeted, so he'll cast an Eerie Interlude in response. Matt, however, also responds and mana drains it, and he does pay the 1 to Esper Sentinel. Shelby will start off by paying 4 mana to gain control of Elesh Norn, then another 4 for Sun Titan, and then finally another 4 for Fiend Hunter. He'll then move to combat and swing everything he just gained control of back at Cameron. Sun Titan will trigger upon attacking, and Shelby returns Phyrexia. Cameron will chump block the Titan with his Solemn Simulacrum, drawing him a card when it dies, and then he'll take 5 damage. And we finally have a new Monarch. Post-combat, Shelby will activate Golden Throne to sacrifice Fiend Hunter, getting back Ethan's Dryad Arbor and his Zulaport Cutthroat. He'll then use one of his Throne mana to equip Skullclamp to Elesh Norn, and then he'll sacrifice her to Phyrexia, drawing him 2 cards and scrying him 1 to the bottom. And there's also a Cutthroat trigger. He'll then repeat this process with the Sun Titan, and now that he's sacrificed enough creatures, he'll cast a 1-mana Dargo. After this, he moves to his cleanup and discards 3 lands, and then passes the turn to Cameron, who will just immediately recast Elesh Norn, and then he'll cast and equip her with Lightning Greaves. He'll then cast an On Thin Ice onto his Snow Plains, and with its 2 ETB triggers, he'll target Phyrexia and Captivating Crew. Shelby will respond by just sacrificing them both to Phyrexia and scrying 1 to the top twice. He also misses 2 Zulaport Cutthroat triggers. Cameron will then move to combat, and he'll swing 4 Commander at Matt, who just takes it, and then he'll pass the turn to Ethan, who will start by upticking Aminatu. He'll then tap for 2 and cast Coiling Oracle because at this point, blockers, and then the turn is passed to Matt, who will get 3 colorless mana on his first main phase. He'll then tap for 2 more mana to cast a Primal Vigor, and he does pay the 1 to Esper Sentinel. He'll then drop a Shimmer Mirror, Urtet trigger, and then he'll play Wooburg and activate Urtet to put 6 +1/+1 counters on all of his mirrors. And then he'll move to combat, and Urtet will untap. He decides not to attack with Urtet, and instead leave up massive blockers for days. So, Matt will pass the turn, and in Shelby's upkeep, Ethan channels Beseiju to destroy Cameron's Lightning Greaves, and Cameron finds a Plains to the battlefield. Shelby will start off by floating 6 mana, and he'll use 1 red from it to cast Ragavan. He'll then cast a Cavalier of Night, sacrificing Ragavan when it enters the battlefield to blow up Elesh Norn again. And when the monkey dies, there's a Zulaport Cutthroat trigger. Shelby will then cast a Plague Crafter. It resolves, and Cameron sacrifices Esper Sentinel, Ethan sacrifices Coiling Oracle, and Matt sacrifices a Mirror, and then Shelby will sacrifice it to itself, and another Zulaport Cutthroat trigger. After this, Shelby will cast Animate Dead on Junji, and then immediately sacrifice it to Golden Throne, floating black/red. Its death trigger will bring back Captivating Crew and lose Shelby 2 life, and there's also a Zulaport Cutthroat trigger. So now 6 creatures have died this turn, and with that floating 3 mana, Shelby will float an additional 2 and cast Blood for the Blood God. There are no responses around the table, so it will resolve. Shelby discards his hand and draws 8, and then each of his opponents take 8 damage, and this will unfortunately kill Ethan. Shelby does forget to exile Blood for the Blood God, but it's alright, he doesn't ever get it back. He'll then play Seer Step Pathway as land for turn, then he'll tap for 3 to cast Ashnod's Altar. Shelby will then sacrifice his Cavalier to the altar, getting 2 mana, and he'll return Plague Crafter with it. And he'll sacrifice his Plague Crafter to itself, so he'll get a total of 2 Cutthroat triggers. Cameron will sacrifice his Palace Jailer, and Matt will sacrifice another Mirror as well. After all this, Shelby will move to combat and swing for 8 at Cameron, who has to just take it. And then the turn is passed to Cameron, who will just tap for 9 and recast Elesh Norn. And then the turn is passed to Matt, who will start off by casting Tezzeret the Seeker. He'll then immediately -4 Tezzeret to find an Aetherflux Reservoir to the battlefield. And then with a Shimmer Mirror out, Matt will just pass the turn. And Shelby will start his turn off by casting a Red Sun's Twilight, X is equal to 5. His targets are Ancient Den, Sol Ring, Shimmer Mirror, Urtet, and Aetherflux Reservoir. Matt will respond by flashing in a Sarcomite Mirror, gaining a life, and then he'll pay 2 to it to draw a card. So the Twilight will resolve, and since X is 5 or more, Shelby actually gets to make a token copy of each thing that he blew up. And because Primal Vigor's out, he doubles those tokens. Legend Rule does apply to Urtet though, so 1 will sacrifice and he gets a Zulaport Cutthroat trigger. Shelby will then activate Captivating Crew to gain control of Elesh Norn, and Cameron will respond by strip mining his own Ancient Den. Shelby will then sacrifice his other Urtet and his 2 Shimmer Mirrors for 6 colorless mana, and that'll get 3 Zulaport Cutthroat triggers. And then using that 6 colorless mana and 2 more red, he'll gain control of both of Matt's mirrors, and then between combat damage and Zulaport Cutthroat triggers, Shelby just straight up has lethal here. And so, with no responses from the rest of the table, they decide to pack it up, and Shelby is the winner of today's Phyrexia All-Is-One video. Well everyone, there you have it. Did that go as you expected? Honestly, I feel a little bad for Ethan, who played an all-ETB deck into an Elesh Norn deck. He did try to remove her, but Cameron had that perfect cloud shift. And Shelby was able to aristocrat everyone out in the end. Let us know what you guys thought down in the comments below, we love hearing from you. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out our links. Let us know what you thought of the deck list, they're down there as well, and let us know what you thought of the decks we brought today. Next week we will be returning to Phyrexia again, but featuring a couple different commanders. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching as always. I hope you all have a smooth day.